Good morning, everybody. I did some wild camping bicycle touring last night, and tonight I'm going to be speaking at a meeting. So I thought I'd take the opportunity to talk about when we talk at a meeting or when we share at a meeting, how to get the most out of that experience. It's always important to remember who is the most important person in a meeting. That's a big question. And a lot of people rush to the answer and say, me. I am. Well, to a certain extent, that's true. But in reality, if you read all the literature, the most important person in the meeting is the newcomer. And I believe that when we share our experience, strength, and hope in such a way that a newcomer can hear that, we're actually helping ourselves in the process. So first rule, always remember that the most important person in the room, in the meeting, is the newcomer. Because the newcomer is the person who is still suffering. And this could be with AA, with alcohol, it could be with drugs, with NA, and it can also be the adult child who still suffers. It's always important to make sure that you share from your heart. It's also important that you talk about yourself, your feelings, and your experiences. All too often people talk about others that aren't even in the room and go off down these rabbit holes of stories that really have nothing to do with what's on their heart or what's on their mind. And in a lot of meetings, you have a limited time. You might only have 2, 3, 4 minutes to have a share. And I know a lot of people maybe need that extra time to go down that rabbit hole to get to that place of insight or that aha moment. But the reality is, you might not get there if you only have 2 or 3 minutes to do it. This is why therapy is so important. Because in therapy, you've got a whole hour to get there. Or if you're working with a sponsor or working with a fellow traveler, once again, you've got that time to go down that rabbit hole. But in a meeting when you're sharing, it's a little bit different because the time is limited. And if you go over and you take up more time, then a lot of times the message that you're giving other people is that you're more important than they are and they don't get their time to share. So that's why it's really important to make sure that we stay within our time limit when sharing so that everybody in the room can have an equal chance and opportunity at sharing. And if you are a newcomer in the meeting and you're sharing, you probably are coming in with either a certain level of denial, huge level of anger, as you're starting to maybe realize certain things about your life, and you might need to take a few minutes to talk about the people that you're angry with. And I'm sure there's going to be a certain level of blaming. I think we've all been there. And that's okay, because that is part of the first process in the recovery process, which is the discovery process, where we're discovering our resentments, we're discovering the things that we're angry about, and that's great in the beginning. But if you've got 5 years in program, 10 years in program, 30 years in program, and all you do is just bitch and moan about all your resentments, where have you come in your recovery? And I know if I was walking into a meeting for the first time and I heard somebody just bitch and complain about people in their life, I would say, I don't see recovery here. I don't know if I can get anything out of this unless that's all this is about, is just about bitching and moaning about the people that you're upset with. So really, in the beginning, yes, discovery phase, bitch and moan, get that stuff off your chest so that you can move into the healing process. Remember, we go from hurting to healing to helping. And the healing process does have a sting. But part of that sting is when we own what we're talking about, how hard it is to feel the feeling sometimes, and how maybe we didn't respond the way that we wanted to, because we might still be reactors rather than responders. Understanding all that, processing that. But I really believe in true recovery, we get to a spot where when we share, it's not just about the hardships, but it's also about how we cope with them. What tools have we learned in program to help us through it? How is it that maybe we're dealing with things better today than we did a month ago, 6 months ago, a year ago? How has working the program, working the steps, working the traditions and the principles, maybe working the Loving Parent Guidebook, how have these things changed us so that today we can manage our life a little bit better than we could in the past? A big part of sharing is getting our needs met. But in recovery, we start to identify what our needs are. And it's important that we do what we need to do to get those needs fulfilled. And if 2, 3, 4 minutes isn't enough, like I said, grab somebody at the end of the meeting, call somebody, work with a sponsor or therapist, get your needs met, because emotional sobriety is waiting for you. I've taken some time this weekend to relax, explore, enjoy the sunset, and I really do appreciate the moments when I can just reconnect with my higher power. And I think that's really what last night for me was all about. And I have about 30 miles of bike riding through the desert ahead of me before getting to my meeting tonight. And I still gotta pack my tent. Anyway, today is a glorious day. Thank you for joining me for a few minutes in my tranquility. And thank you for letting me share.